to introduce myself. My name is Brad Panovich. I'm the Chief Meteorologist at NBC Charlotte. I had to look back. I think this is the second year, but it feels like I've done it 3 years in a row. But when Jen first asked me to do this the first time, I said, sign me up. Because this is something that's near and dear to my heart as well. I love TreesCharlotte. I love the Trees Summit. And just a little bit about, my passion for trees started as a young kid. And I tell a story here, I told it to someone outside, that, when I was a kid, we had a little sapling that my neighbor gave me that we planted at my parents' house in Ohio. And it was so cool to take my kids back over 7 and 8 last summer and see this giant oak tree that is in the yard, and say, this is the tree that I planted when I was, this little kid. So I think at one of the trees, I think it was the chili cook-off, I had 2 saplings, and both of my kids planted in our backyard 2 maple trees. And they were so funny, they put it in the ground. And it's got like 1 leaf on it, right? It's real tiny stuff. My son is out there every day with a tape measure, trying to see how much taller it's getting. Buddy, it's dormant right now. It's not going to grow until the spring. And then he got all upset when that 1 leaf fell off. And he's like, Dad, it's dead. I'm like, no, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. So it's something just me and my family enjoy. It as a meteorologist, to me, the thing about trees that's just so amazing is they're like our first line of defense of climate change. And living in a city like Charlotte, where we have huge stormwater runoff issues, we have so much development, I can't think of a better way to fight this than to plant trees. They really are a great resource. And the thing about trees is just not planting them, it's about keeping the canopy healthy. Because we don't know, there's some trees that you don't want, that aren't the greatest trees to have. We need to have more native species put in. So the fact that this organization does just such a great job of getting the proper trees and maintenance into people in our community, I think is great. The theme for tonight, which I think is a big part of this, is a catalyst to make change. I love this because, I do a lot of talks on climate change, and one of the hardest things about talking about climate change is everyone thinks it's this big thing and they can't do anything, and government's going to solve our problems. Well, the thing is, there's so many entities that have to take part in this, and this is what I think about tonight, is that from developers to the city to you in your backyard, everybody has a role in this. There's a place for you to do something to help out. So I think the cool thing about tonight is it's kind of inspirational to see all these different groups, different people from different walks of life, different organizations, all kind of doing the same thing to help keep our tree canopy healthy. And to introduce one of the guys that I love, because he's so active and just real energetic about this, is TreesCharlotte Executive Director Chuck Cole. I'm going to introduce him, and he's going to talk for a little bit. I'm not going to eat up all the time because Chuck wants to talk for like 20 minutes, right?
Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. So sometimes I'm tall, so I'm away from the mic and can't hear me. This is the Big Tree Summit, and it's all about being engaged, sharing information, motivating and educating, all about trees, basically. Raise your hands if you've ever volunteered at a TreesCharlotte event. Keep them raised. Raise your hands if you've ever planted a tree. That's good. Raise your hands if you're concerned about fresh air, cleaner water, and cooler communities. Does that cover everybody? Everybody's raising their hands? You are proof that Charlotte's canopy will grow, and the Big Tree Summit is all about you. So thank you very much for being an essential part of what we do. I think you deserve an applause. So as we close our season, our TreesCharlotte planting season, we have planted and distributed about 33,000 trees to date. That's pretty good. 5,000 of those trees were this past season. We've engaged 16,000 volunteers. Some of you are here tonight also. We have planted trees and provided shade at 48 schools and celebrated trees at 62 neighborhood community events. I think the city of Charlotte and TreesCharlotte deserve a round of applause for that accomplishment. So I would also like to recognize Brad Panovich. I've got to return the favor for emceeing yet again, and for also doing a tree store event that we had, which was with Kiwanis. It was a chili cook-off. Also, I want to recognize Mayor Lyles for coming in. Did you fly in just now, or did you come in yesterday? She was out of town and she made a quick trip to be here. And also Dan Lamb, who came all the way from Nebraska to serve as our keynote. We have a gift for each one of you, naming you as an honorary tree master. You usually have to do a lot of volunteer hours for that. And we figured for what you're doing now, what you'll do in the future, it all evens out. These are,
Can you show it?
yeah, these are rain jackets. And to get one of these rain jackets, you are normally a tree master. So you have to put in the hours.
Yeah, that's big. It's fancy. Tree masters are really mad who are in the house and haven't gotten one.
So thank you all for attending and being here and helping us out. Also, I'd like to recognize some of our board members with TreesCharlotte. I know that I've got two here, Rolf Neal, who's in the front row, and I've got Paul Cardews. Paul, where are you? Paul over here. Any other board members that I missed? I think those are the two ones. Thank you for attending. Let me tell you a little bit about our Tree Master program. To be a Tree Master, all you have to do is come to one of our Tree Master classes. We'll teach you everything you need to know. You end up being a person, a volunteer, a super volunteer basically, and you'll lead other individuals and other volunteers to plant trees. You'll lead them through different events that we have. You'll teach them the proper way to plant trees. You'll teach them the proper way to take care and steward trees. So you actually lead these groups. It is a very special group that we have. I want to thank all of our tree masters for their never-ending service. They are at the heart of what it is that we do. For our Giving Tuesday campaign this past year, we had a challenge grant of $15,000 from our TreesCharlotte board of directors. So we challenged our tree masters to help. Many of them stepped up and personally donated. They asked their friends and family to contribute. In a little friendly competition, one of our tree masters outpaced everyone, raising $1,986.59. Dave Molinaro, will you come forward, please? Dave not only had wonderful, nice friends that helped him, but the time and effort that he puts into everything that he does for TreesCharlotte is extraordinary. I've got 5 minutes to do 20 minutes worth of work. So our next Tree Master recognition actually goes to a group that we call the 100+ Club. Now these are tree masters that have put in 100+ hours of their volunteer time. These guys really come to every event. They are super hyped up and they help us do everything from set up events to everything. They run errands, they do everything. They raise money like what Dave did. These 6 volunteers have given more than 100 hours of service to TreesCharlotte since the close of last season. Tree Masters help with volunteers. Like I said, they set up events, dig holes, lift heavy bags of mulch, and guide volunteers. They're truly amazing. If you're here, please come up. Nick Gaddis. Stephen Cole. Scott Foster. David Shelton. Eric Stanisevsky. So swag is a big deal when you're a tree master. So we thought this slick microfiber sweatshirt would really put them a cut above. Thanks so much for your tireless work and everything that you do for TreesCharlotte. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Bartlett Tree Experts are a tremendous supporter of Trees Charlotte. They sponsor and support this event. They've done it for the past 3 years. They help Trees Charlotte a lot. Robert Bartlett, who's the owner, is on our board, and he helps a tremendous amount. Bartlett always goes to great extents. I want to introduce Eric Schmidhausler with Bartlett Tree Experts. They're absolutely wonderful. They're great to work with. They have been in the community for a long time. They have helped the canopy, I think, a lot longer than we've actually helped the canopy. So Eric, can you come forward?
Good evening, everyone. Hope you're all enjoying yourselves. Chuck, thank you to your entire staff at Trees Charlotte for letting us be involved in your organization. What a fantastic opportunity it is for us. As Chuck said, my name is Eric Schmidhausler, and I'm one of 7 arborist representatives for Bartlett Tree Experts. We have a great team of people, and we all work tirelessly together to help the city. Before I introduce our next speaker, I'd like to talk about why we sponsor this event. When I think about our partnership between Trees Charlotte and Bartlett Tree Experts, I'm reminded about the mission statement of both organizations. Trees Charlotte is a private, public, nonprofit collaborative to grow, diversify, and steward the city's iconic urban forests, train volunteers, and science-based programs teach residents about the value of trees and how to plant and care for them. 100 years before Trees Charlotte was even around, Francis Bartlett started a small tree care company in Connecticut committed to providing scientifically based landscape management recommendations, delivering quality service safely and at a level that meets or exceeds industry standards. 3 generations later, Bartlett Tree Experts is a worldwide leader in scientific tree care, partnering with organizations similar to Trees Charlotte in some of the nation's most prominent cities. Our arborists lead in pest management solutions and urban planting recommendations. We speak at your children's schools, your HOA landscape meetings, and most importantly, we volunteer right alongside each one of you to plant trees. We sponsor this event not only because our local Bartlett office has been around Charlotte since the 1950s, but also because Charlotte is the center of our company's scientific tree care and research program with our state-of-the-art laboratory facility. Continuing to build on Dr. Bartlett's legacy, the research conducted at our 350-acre facility today is absolutely essential in ensuring that future generations will have beautiful and useful trees to enjoy. One of our Bartlett Tree Experts' more recent initiatives, similar to Trees Charlotte, is our Legacy Tree Program. Our team of arborist representatives nationwide commit to handing out over 25,000 seedlings per year to help grow our urban canopies. In keeping with that initiative, our arborists tonight would like to make sure everyone goes home with a seedling. Most of you stopped by our table earlier. We have seedlings for everyone to take one home. We've got small trees, large trees, evergreen trees, but we feel passionate, just like Trees Charlotte does, in adding to the canopy. So I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Charlotte Mayor Vi Alexander Lyles. On December 4th, 2017, Vi Lyles was sworn in as the 59th mayor of Charlotte, North Carolina. As a Democratic leader, she is known for her strong commitment toward creating jobs, expanding affordable housing options, and supporting safe, livable neighborhoods. Mayor Lyles received a bachelor's degree in political science from Queen's University and a master's degree in public administration from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Under her leadership, the city of Charlotte continues to grow as a center for commerce, culture, and diversity. Ladies and gentlemen, Vi Lyles.
Good evening, everyone. You know, it's kind of nice to be here today, but I do want to say something. I just hope that Brad never runs for public office, because as one of the most trusted people in this entire community, I'd be a little bit scared. And Chuck, thank you for what you're doing, and Jen, the invitation to come out here tonight. I am especially fond of trees because they don't come to public hearings. They provide you shade and rest and things that make you feel better about yourself, which being mayor is not always an easy thing. But seriously, Ralph Neal twisted my arm about 4 years ago. He and Dave Cable, when they walk into the room, you should know there's going to be something that you're going to lose and that you might as well get ready for it. But actually, I'm going to be really serious for a moment. A long time ago, I was on a committee. I think all of us know about committee work, but there was a guy, Hamilton McKay, who's a pediatrician here in town, and he was a master gardener. I think he played the organ at one of his churches, but he passed away this year, and I remember picking up the paper and reading about that. And he was one of the very first people that talked to me about what trees meant in this city and in this country, in this world. And I don't think, I'd ever heard of climate change when he said that. So it was probably like more than 15 years ago. But I remember so much that conversation about the tree canopy. So fast forward to today, and the reason that all of you are here is making a difference around that tree canopy. I feel like we owe a lot to people in this community that have invested, not just the things that we often see as our foundation in terms of commerce and that kind of thing, but the people that quietly talked about some of the issues that we're most proud of today. And our tree canopy is one of those things. And so we're here to celebrate that tonight, but I want to celebrate the people that always came forward and never were loud. They weren't marching in the streets, but they quietly talked about the way that we could distinguish ourselves. And one of the most vivid things about that, when you fly into our city and you see what it looks like from the air, you know what value it has. We know what the organizations that are committed, like TreesCharlotte, starting off new and just taking it and going with it, because they have that vision. They didn't have to get in an airplane. They could just see it from our neighborhood streets. As mayor, one of my most coveted jobs is to talk about what makes our city great. And I often talk about great neighborhoods, and I say that they're safe. But it's not because we have a police officer on every corner. That's important around safety. But I say when people can walk down the street on their sidewalk, and they have lighting, and they have trees, and a sense of self, and a sense of being in a community, that's what's going to make a difference. And trees in Charlotte are one of the most important neighborhood assets that we have that contribute to that. So I want to say thank you. This award tonight is going to be very important. The awards that we're going to be presenting are very important. The people that work and volunteer as the Charlotte Tree Advisory Commission serve us so well. They are the Peter McKays of today. And I want to recognize all of them. And if you're here, please stand. The chair, Alex Thunderschnick, thank you. Did I get it close? Close enough? Eric Applefield, where's Eric Applefield? Scott Baker. Thank you, Scott. Jay Banks. Kim Holmes. Thank you, Kim. Sarah Moore. Thank you. Scott Roberts. Yes. Wayne Robinson. And Mary Jo Shepherd. So I want to say thank you. These are the people that currently stand and help us make good decisions. I also want to recognize Gina Shell, who's on our team, our internal team. People often talk about being the first African-American woman mayor in Charlotte. I always say I'm the first retired city employee mayor of Charlotte. And I want to say that I've worked with Gina for a long time and grateful for what she contributes and what she does here. So this year, I understand this is a brand new rebranding of the Crown Tree Awards with 4 categories to reflect the community's efforts to protect our canopy. And I want to say and recognize Carolina Urban Lumber. Where are you? Oh, don't be shy. There's no shy people in this room. The plaques that we're going to present tonight were done by Carolina Urban Lumber and use woods from TreesCycle America program. So we know, they get our applause right here. So we know that the wood used in these plaques come from a sweet gum from northeast Charlotte that was taken down due to development. So someone's going to carry that forward for us. So there are several awards, and I'm going to start off with the Corporate Friend of the Urban Forest. The nominations in this category recognize a company and its leaders for their outstanding commitment to the urban forest. This year's winner, are you going to help me?
Oh, I will help hand out.
Thank you very much. This year's winner has shown multiple ways that they support the urban canopy, from hiring a reputable arborist to care for Oki and their other large trees. How many of you have trees with things? Okay, to saving and planting many trees during construction, to their mission to improve the quality of life in our community, which they believe is partly achieved through their amazing trees. Congratulations to Old Mecklenburg Brewery. Now I get the Oki part. This year's Corporate Friend Award. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you. I've been to your space. Yeah, you have to see the photo op time. Brad, you could tell him how that works. Except he has a green curtain behind him. He has to look at a TV and he's making it. It's just amazing. Amazing talent. The next award. Proud Partner of the Canopy. Nominations recognize the educator, community partner, or civic institution that has played an exceptional role in the effort to promote our canopy. The winner of this award raises awareness of the importance of creating and expanding quality green space as a way to give back to nature. They have inspired citizens to certify over 1,150 wildlife habitats. Trees play a large role in these habitats, providing shelter, food, and a place to raise young. Congratulations to Crown, the Charlotte chapter of the North Carolina Wildlife Federation, for being this year's proud partner of the canopy.
On behalf of the Crown for you.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, I really
We
appreciate
certified
it.
Charlotte in 2015, and that's a copy of the certification.
So this is the National Wildlife Federation recognizes certification of community wildlife habitat, Charlotte, North Carolina. Thank you so very much. So the next award is the Spirit of the Tree. This award honors special relationships between humans and trees. On the campus of this school, there's a very special tree that presents countless learning opportunities, provides material for holiday ornaments, gives children an opportunity for climbing, and brings them closer to nature. It is my pleasure to award the Spirit of the Tree Award to Park Road Montessori.
So I have to say, even this morning, I took a group of pre-Ks out, and we stood under that tree right there and went, Oh, evergreen, oh, evergreen, how lovely are your branches. It's a marvelous tree. Come see it.
Yes.
And Bartlett and Heartwood, we lost about a third of the back at this last winter storm. We could use some help for our We want CMS to have more trees on their campus, so we're pulling for them.
So this year, there's a Mayor's Tree of the Year. And I think there are photos that were submitted of trees around Charlotte at their most breathtaking time of life, I guess? Or whatever. So, but they also asked me to talk about what made me choose the tree that I chose for the Mayor's Tree of the Year. And I have to say it was really a tough decision because I love red maples. But this is the way that I see the cherry tree that I chose. You know how many of us worked so hard in school to go on that trip to Washington during that time. And when I thought about this, I thought about the very essence of what we're trying to do is to educate children about what kind of country we can be if all of us just learn a little bit more about democracy and participate in it. And I think that trip to Washington symbolizes our first step there. So I chose it in honor of the cherry trees that we have in blossom, where many times during the spring children go to our capital because we need it now. And that's why I chose that tree. And so the owner of the Mayor's Tree is Tara Moore. I love the wardrobe idea.
Daniel, can you get all of them together?
Okay.
Maybe you'll bring it down front.
So I want to say that I want to thank all of you. There's no better job that I've ever had than serving as mayor of Charlotte. So thank you for having me tonight.
Congratulations, everybody. But thank again the mayor. I mean, she's such a great representative of our city, so I want to thank you. Much like our tree, you really represent the city. And speaking of the city, it's now time to introduce someone from the city. We're going to talk about the state of the canopy. I think that's always one of the interesting things when I come to the summit is, how are we doing? I always worry about the storms. We had 2 hurricanes last year. Thankfully, we haven't had a major ice storm in a while, which I'm always, when I first got here, my first week in town was December 2002 ice storm, if anyone remembers that, where it poured and it was like 28 degrees outside. I have never been in an ice storm like that. Actually ended up causing more tree damage than Hugo, which people forget, and actually not have more people without power than Hugo. It just goes to show you the power that Mother Nature has. So I'm going to introduce Erin Alferio. She's from the city of Charlotte. She's going to talk about the tree canopy in Charlotte. She's the manager of it. We're giving us a little presentation on where we stand. And then I'll bring Chuck up and we'll have a little conversation. So if you have questions along the way, save them to the end. So Erin, please come up.
Thank you all so much. And I remember the ice storm too. I had just moved closer to uptown Charlotte, and we had we lived in a tiny little house in Chantilly. We had 2 ginormous willow oaks, one in the front and one in the back, and all I heard all night long was cracking, and I had never been more scared in my whole life, so I feel for the people. I no longer have those large trees like that around my house, but we have moved, I did not cut them down. But one of them eventually did fall on the house. I heard that from our old neighbors, so they can be very scary in storms like that. But thank you all for having me tonight. I'm just going to talk a little bit about city and some tree successes and some things that are going on with our tree canopy here in Charlotte. So this slide is just one of our tree crews out there working. We had a lot of successes this year. We planted over 19,000 trees. That includes TreesCharlotte trees that were planted. It includes right-of-way trees, community improvement projects, and stormwater projects, where I think the bulk of them were very small seedlings that were put in along stream projects. So hoping that those grow into great riparian buffers for us in the future. We also pruned 1,320 trees. We removed about 600, right over 600, and then our urban forestry staff reviewed 795 plans for development to make sure that all the developers are following the tree ordinance and the trees are of good quality and planted correctly. So lots of good things going on with our trees here in Charlotte. And then Brad mentioned the storm, so we did have some major storm activity already this year. And when we say year, we always are talking about our fiscal year, so starting in July 1st and going through June 30th. So we're not even the whole way through yet, so we're hoping for no more major storms coming through. But Florence was the first one, and that's the one on your left. So these are heat maps that Tim Porter, our city arborist, developed. The brighter colors, the whites, the oranges, the reds are the areas of more significant impacts. So you can sort of see where the impacts were during each one of these storms. So Florence was the long storm that we had where it moved in and just sat over us. We had over 500 service requests in that time frame. So our tree crews were working 24 hours a day. I think for 4 or 5 days they were working, clearing roads, making sure that they were safe for travel, putting debris on the side, and then for months after that they're still going back and removing debris and putting it where it needs to go. The middle one was Michael that came in fast and moved through quickly, but the winds were a lot stronger in that one. We had over 400 storm requests in there, so again, our staff was working 24 hours a day to keep the roads clear, to report where there were road blockages, work with Duke Power and CMPD to make sure everyone knew what was going on. And then the last one was our early ice storm that we had, snowstorm, Diego, that came through. You can see on the eastern side of that, that's where a lot of the ice was. We lost a lot of evergreen trees, so arborvitaes and pines were falling because they were heavily weighted down there. But you can see there, that's just a really good representation of where all the damage is occurring when we have storms like this. And then we worked through, many of you probably know this or remember it from last year, we worked through 2016 to create the Urban Forest Master Plan, and City Council approved it in September of 2017. So 2018 was the first year that we were really putting efforts into this and making that plan move forward. We've done a lot of work on this, and are actually, out of the 12 recommendations out of the plan, we're actively working on 6 of them and moving those forward. And 2 of my favorites that I'd like to focus on tonight are, not the video, just, yeah, this one, yes. So this is we had a tree inventory done, so we hired Planet Geo to come in, and they inventoried about 20,000 trees for us. What they were doing while they were out there was looking at every tree that Lori Reed right here in the front gave them a list of trees. They were looking at all of those trees, they were identifying the type of tree it was, they were taking the measurement at breast height to see how big the trees were, they were looking for any kinds of defects and taking reports on those, and then also looking for maintenance issues that we might need to work on in the future. If the tree was bigger than 22 inches in diameter, they were also sounding it to check for hollows, making sure that there was nothing going on inside of the tree. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. And then this is actually a really cool website, so if you want to click on one of those dots from the computer, this is actually mapping them all out. This is something that we're progressing towards and hoping to be able to put out to the public in the next couple of years. But if you actually click on one of those trees, you can see the one that was clicked on is a laurel oak. It's a very small tree, so it must be newly planted, 2 inches, and that's the address. If you would click on the street view, you'd actually get a picture of that tree as well, so just really handy for people. We think it brings community. Very, very small, right uptown there. So those are all the dots of just the ones that they've done. So if we would put together all of the data that we have on trees and be able to get out a map like this, it would be really great, I think, for citizens to figure out what trees in front of their house, learn a little bit more about the trees we have in Charlotte. If you scroll down, the whole screen down to the bottom, on the right side here. Yep. The outside, I'm sorry, the outside one. This.
Yeah, sorry.
There. Yeah, so you can see that it shows you like the pot, you can get a graph, or you can pick out certain species and see what the percentages are. So the bigger ones obviously are our red maples, our crepe myrtles, and our willow oaks. We have the most of those as street trees in Charlotte. We're trying to diversify, but you can sort of see what's all out there. So just pretty interesting from Planet Geo. We're happy to have them on board doing this project, and I know Lori has access to lots of data behind the scenes too, and I know she loved all of that data. Okay, we can go back to the. All right, and then this is the next project that is really close to my heart. So one of the recommendations in the plan was to bring resources where they're needed most. And so we created what we call the Large Tree Assistance Program. Not the best name, we're working on updating that. But we ran a pilot this year in the Wesley Heights neighborhood, and this is just a really short video sort of describing that.
The trees were dying. They were big and looked good, but they were dying, they were rotting, and I was worried that they would fall into my home. I'm a single parent, and I could not begin to afford that damage. It was just a blessing.
Charlotte is unique in that we have large trees across all income levels, and trees are great assets to the community. We want everyone to have access to all of their benefits, and we also want to be able to provide peace of mind to those on a fixed income that the tree in their yard is safe.
I am thrilled that we are realizing the value of these trees and the canopy that we have, and that we're willing to make the investment not just in the showpiece neighborhoods in town. Because these trees are probably more important in neighborhoods like this, where maybe air conditioning is not as available in the summertime. And the trees provide so much benefit.
So it was just a merging of all efforts. So City Council had given us an additional $25,000 that was directed to be used for anything but tree planting. And so we got together as a staff and we decided this was a really great time to offer this pilot. And right at the same time, the HOA, the Neighborhood Association for Wesley Heights, had contacted the city and wanted to get help for some of their residents that were long-time residents. We realize that neighborhood is flipping over, but there are many people that still live in that neighborhood that are on a fixed income and that have been there for many years. Some of them that we met have been there for over 50 years, and the home has been in their family for generations. So they had lots of large trees, and they were really nervous about them. So it is, just like I said, it's peace of mind for these people, but it's also protecting the tree canopy and helping out people. So Arbor Guard did all of the tree assessments of those 21 trees, and they ranked them from extreme risk to low risk. And then Heartwood began working on those trees. So from Colette's yard, I think they removed 2 or 3 trees that were decaying and falling into pieces. And there was also an ash tree in her yard that wasn't, with the emerald ash borer coming in, we knew it was going to be a problem, but it also had some defects as well. So we did remove trees from her yard, and also pruned one that we saved. And the goal is not removal of these trees, and that's one of the things that was harder for the residents to understand. But once we talked to them and explained that pruning it, taking some weight off of these trees is good, and we want to preserve the canopy in their yard. We don't want to take down all of these large trees, but we want to let them know that they are safe and that there's people out there that can help them with that. And we are looking for ways to expand this program, get additional funding, and be able to move it out into other neighborhoods. We had a great brainstorming session with all of the players involved and had a lot of good dialogue about that. Which is really exciting time for me, and it was really neat to meet all these people and get to know them in these neighborhoods and make a difference in their lives. It's about keeping them in their homes, and if one of those trees falls on a home, that might put someone out, they wouldn't be able to fix it and move back in. So it's just a good program. And then another way that we're working to protect trees is through our tree canopy preservation program. And I wish Tim Porter, the city arborist, could be here. This is really his baby, and I'm just going to try to talk about it as well as I can. But it was established in 2011 through ordinance revisions. So it created a payment in lieu option for tree save areas. So developers in certain areas of town, depending on the type of project and where it's located, they have the option of not preserving trees on their property, but paying into a fund in lieu of saving those trees. So we have so far, and then it gives the city the right to use that land to protect trees, buy land to protect them in perpetuity. So to date, we have acquired 224 acres. We partner with the Catawba Lands Conservancy to help manage those lands. And some of the issues that we ran into is a lot of these parcels, and the Catawba Lands Conservancy is looking for larger acreage. So a lot of these are on the periphery of Charlotte. They're not like in downtown where we're losing tree canopy and it's more urbanized. So what we've done then is have developed a concept right now. It's called the Urban Arboretum Trail or the Urban Tree Trail, where we are looking at land that the city already owns, whether it's right-of-way or little remnant parcels that were from road development and things like that, and utilizing those small pockets of land and creating unique spaces that can be visited by bike or foot to learn about Charlotte's canopy. So this is Tim's map, and it just sort of shows some of the locations downtown where these sites exist. Some of them we are working on purchasing, some of them we already own, and we're working on concepts for these, like this. So this is in the Greenville neighborhood behind the Music Factory, and it's on Spring Street. It's just a little parcel right there along the street that the city is right now currently mowing all the time. And we envision it to be a place where, with all passive uses, mulch paths or gravel paths maybe, but places for pollinators, places for urban orchards, places for people to come and congregate and make it part of their community. We see a really great partnership opportunity with TreesCharlotte to come into these neighborhoods and work with us to get these projects off the ground, and opportunities for them to get into areas that maybe they want to get into, to give trees out to residents and things like that. So we're really excited about this program as well. And then so for 2019, I am just ecstatic. I love the people I work with. Everyone's really excited. There's lots of new ideas out there. We definitely are moving the tree canopy preservation program forward, working to acquire more lands and smaller parcels. And we are also working to build a team of people to help talk and speak about the canopy. And I hope that all of you got to visit the Queen's Crown booth out in the lobby and sign up for that, but that's a really great way to get involved, to rebuild the treasure tree program and get that program off the ground again and start designating our special trees in Charlotte as these unique, special objects that we have and that we should be protecting and working to save.
Thank you, that's a great presentation. I'm actually going to bring you back up here. And Chuck.
And Lori. And Lori.
And Lori, come on up. So this is your chance as an audience to grill them. No, we can do about a 15, 20 minute, maybe 10, 15 minutes, I'm sorry. 10 to 15 minutes where you guys, if you have questions for any of our panelists up here, we're going to get mics on them. I'll start the conversation if you want, but if you have a question, just raise your hand, step up here. Do we have mics out there?
Yeah, you will.
Probably help.
Get it?
It's kind of quiet here.
Yeah.
I'm not used to microphones, so I kind of, when I do school talks, they're always going, "Want a microphone?" I'm like, no, I can talk about it. All right. Oh, we got the first question. Go ahead.
How, if a tree is on, not on the right of way, but if there's a long branch that covers the street, how would the city be involved in the removal of that? And would they be, help with the removal of that? Of just the branch. If the branch falls, the branch falls on the street, which it is right, looking like it might, who's responsible for that cleanup if something does happen?
So the branch has fallen, is that correct?
Well, it's just a large branch that's over one of the streets. I live on Central and Lansdowne. And so this is covering Lansdowne, and it's a huge branch, and it falls. But it's 1 foot off the right of way. So I was told that it wasn't the city's responsibility to take that branch out.
Sure, so trees on private property are the responsibility of the property owner. If the branch does fall and blocks the street, the city is responsible, landscape management, we keep the right of way clear. So the roads need to be clear, so we will cut back and make sure the road is clear so cars and vehicles can get through. But ultimately, the rest of the material that is still on private property is the responsibility of that property owner. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to give my question here. I think the program you guys did for the lower income neighborhoods, I'm kind of curious, is there a way to get more private money involved in that? Is there any kind of fundraising that you guys are doing to, because I think that's a thing that I think I see a lot of people, the woman in the video was very telling. People have these huge trees on their property and they feel overwhelmed with the cost of maintaining them. Is there any plans of expanding or doing major fundraising for that type of program?
I think that the idea is for it to be tested first, and let's see how well it rolls out and see what it is that we encounter. And at some point in time, I'm sure we probably could do something about that.
I've always thought that insurance companies might be people who, because they're paying out if something happens, so maybe they'd be willing to put money in.
Mitigation is always better than response. I'm a big fan of mitigation. That's a good point. I think insurance companies would be very invested in that.
So when you do this periphery, like you were talking about when you prune or remove trees, do you have any kind of policy about at least replacing with younger trees for the next generation of the canopy, as many as you remove?
So that was my initial intent with this program, was to do that, and my end game, I think, is to bring in TreesCharlotte. So I think that a lot of the neighborhoods that we would be going into would be neighborhoods that they would like to reach out to as well. And they're difficult to get into because people aren't as concerned with trees. They're trying to pay bills, they're trying to do other things, put food on the table. So this would be a way in, like, yes, so we would do the work, but one of the requirements would be that TreesCharlotte would plant a tree back on the property. And then maybe the discussion we had in our wrap-up group was that that might be difficult for someone to maintain, they might not do the maintenance on it that's needed, and that would give TreesCharlotte the opportunity then to bring in like tree masters and volunteers and really work with that neighborhood to help them do all those things and get the tree to grow to its best potential. So yes, for future iterations of that program, that's something that I definitely see. We did not have enough funds to do it with this program.
Hi, good evening. One of the things I heard somebody briefly touch on is kind of getting smarter about how to use plant materials, particularly street trees. I know we had a problem in the past as far as like pushing up the sidewalks and things like that with roots. So what are some good species, cultivars, and trees to use in street trees?
So I administer the neighborhood tree planting program where we use funds to plant trees within the right of way, to replace trees when they're removed, and then plant trees in neighborhoods that never had trees in the right of way. And our policy is always the right tree in the right space. So knowing the size of the planting area and knowing the characteristics of the tree, whether you've got power line, we need to have a small maturing tree, or I only have a 6-foot planting strip, I need to have a tree that's not going to grow so large, that's going to overgrow the space, and I always like to say eat the sidewalk and eat over the curb. We all say that, right? The willow oaks that grow over the side. So, making sure that we're choosing the right species. So a lot of it does depend on the area. If I have a lot of overhead canopy, I need to plant a tree that's going to do well in that shaded area. If I have overhead power, I need to stick to small maturing species like Coosa dogwoods and red buds and service berries. So a lot of it just depends on what the environment that I'm planting in. Does that answer your question or not really? Okay. So, one thing we always preach in urban forestry is right tree for the right space. So knowing how much room that you have to plant in, knowing your obstacles that you have to work around, and just making sure you're choosing the right thing that's not going to cause long-term infrastructure damage.
So this is going to be a fully loaded question that probably involves everyone involved. Even you, Mr. Brad. So my question is, Aaron in the session earlier this evening presented a graph that showed a trend with increasing storms and increasing calls with loss of trees. So with climate change and the effects of more flooding, increased storms, increased severe weather, I think Wilmington had the wettest year ever on record. How is the city planning and what is the planning going to involve to reaching that 50% goal with the influx of climate change that's going to be affecting the area?
I'll speak on the climate change thing. I mean, as a meteorologist, you're exactly right. The frequency of heavy rain events is probably the biggest thing we're seeing in Charlotte from climate change. Our temperature trends in Charlotte are more pronounced in the summer than any other season. I did a presentation last week to the Turf Grower Association for North and South Carolina. They're all the golf course superintendents. And if you want to talk to people who know that climate change is going on, talk to people trying to grow grass. And the type of grass that you have to grow on these golf courses now to make them heat and drought resistant, unfortunately aren't cold resistant. So our hot summers make you want to grow one variety of grass, and then when we get a cold snap in the winter, it causes them to have to tarp the greens, which makes it very difficult. But the trend is clearly more rainfall and hotter summers. So I can tell you trees would help out tremendously with both of those. One, cooling us in the summer, but also they help us stormwater. I think flooding is going to be the biggest issue that we're going to deal with when it comes to climate change in the Charlotte area. More so than temperature. Don't get me wrong, temperature's going up here, but heavy rain events, and we've already started to see that happen in the last couple of years.
I mean, I'm gonna plant trees. I want to engage everybody here to plant trees. We're gonna try to grow the canopy together.
Yeah, and it's like you guys were saying earlier, I think mitigation is where, trust me, mitigating these issues is much cheaper than dealing with the effects afterwards.
And trees in Charlotte, the large trees, so the moisture in the soil and then any kind of wind event with it, that's normally when we see those large trees come down. And we know we have the aging tree canopy. So I think one of the things that we need to make sure that we need to do is to make people tree aware. So a week before a storm is predicted is not the time to worry about your tree. It's all year long, and making sure that you're taking care of it at the appropriate time. So making sure that if you have those large trees in your yard, that you have a certified arborist coming out and letting you know if there's an issue with it, if it needs to come down, or if you need to have it pruned, or taking branches away from your home. But doing that well in advance of storms instead of waiting and panicking the week before is something that we need to start messaging out to citizens in Charlotte.
I was wondering, with all the development that's happening, what would be one or two suggestions you would have for people who are doing construction to their houses or properties in terms of how they could preserve their trees and mitigate any of the damages that could be caused by construction?
So I think the most important thing, if individual homeowners are doing work on their house or rebuilding or adding on to their house, putting trees in the forefront of before you make plans to build that house. A lot of people think that I have a house here, I've got a tree that's 20, 30 feet away, oh, I can just add right up next to that. They don't really realize how much impact they're having on the root zone of the tree, which is going to affect that overall tree. So I think starting with that plan first, knowing we need to preserve that tree, and making plans to give enough space around that tree. Generally, when we work around trees, for every inch diameter, you need 1 foot on each side of that tree. So a 10-inch tree, I need 10 foot, north, south, east, west, this large circle all the way around that tree. And I don't know if people realize that they actually need that much space. Sometimes I'll see private property trees and they have their orange fence 2 feet from the outside of a 20-inch tree, and that's just not going to cut it. So it's really important to start with preservation before you get into the construction plans, giving enough space for that tree to actually be able to survive that damage, getting in touch with a certified arborist to know what do I need to do, how is the best way to protect this, and then moving down the line, every single contractor working out there needs to understand the importance of preserving that tree. That goes down to the guy that's laying the new irrigation. He can't remove that tree protection fence to put irrigation around it because he trenches right through those tree roots and damages that tree. So every single worker out there needs to know the importance of that tree and keeping that tree protected throughout the life of that project. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll do one more question, I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, I just had a question regarding the land save or conservancy, which I totally makes sense that it needs to be large pieces in continuity for wildlife corridors and things like that. Is there any thought or movement towards preserving small pieces, like 3 acres or 5 acres, just because you've got, it's still a major contributor to the canopy?
Yeah, so that's the second iteration of the program, or that urban tree trail. So using vacant parcels in neighborhoods, we're looking at those. Little remnant lots, or from a new street construction, there's always like remnant land, so using those as well, and gathering up things that are 1, 2, or even smaller acreages within the urban core to be able to provide those little canopy corners or pocket parks or whatever we're going to call them, to provide canopy and gathering opportunities for neighborhoods.
So that's not just city-owned though, that, like, I'm thinking private individuals who want to donate their property, like they would do Perkatog on a lands conservancy.
Yes.
You could do it in a small way.
We could do it on a smaller scale, in certain areas, if it fit in with the plan, yes, we would do that.
Great conversations, and appreciate you guys coming up here, Chuck, Aaron, and Lori. And we're gonna go on, we're gonna have another panel discussion, so if you have questions, just wait to the end. We're gonna have another Q&A here. I love hearing these questions. But I want to introduce one of the board members for TreesCharlotte. He's going to introduce our keynote speaker tonight. Let me introduce Ralph Neal from TreesCharlotte. He's former Charlotte Observer publisher as well, and he's going to introduce our keynote speaker tonight. So Ralph.
Patrick George, where are you?
Patrick, back there in the right.
Hiding back there. I was glad to hear you make the reference to the health of trees and the health of the community. I'd like to take a quick survey of this audience regarding a medical condition. How many of you, either personally or with someone in your immediate family, deals with respiratory issues? Put your hands way up if you would, please. That's just about half of the audience. Trees, they're beautiful. They help us conserve groundwater. They help us conserve electricity. But above all, they keep us alive. They clean our lungs by taking the carbon dioxide or the carbon monoxide out of the air and giving us oxygen again that we can breathe. And that's something that TreesCharlotte will be emphasizing both through its community programs, but later also programs we expect to start with the cooperation of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg school system. The speaker is a guy named Dan Lamb. Anybody here know Dan Lamb? Well, one person, but the truth is, I don't know. We have 45 million people who go through our airport every year. 45 million. A lot of creeps go through there. So we have this guy that, well, we got him for free. He's the head of the Arbor Day Foundation. He's an interesting guy on paper, but how are you going to know when he gets here? How are you going to know? Nobody seemed to know him. So I called his office and explained our problem. How do you identify this fellow? His secretary says, well, he loves tree jokes. I said, tree jokes? She said, yes, tree jokes. So I'm going to ask the person who says he is Dan Lamb a couple of things that I think will establish pretty quickly whether this is an imposter or truly the president of the Arbor Day Foundation. Stand up, please. Face the audience. What kind of tree can you fit in your hand?
A palm tree.
That's very good. Who told you that? Why was the cat afraid of the tree?
Because of the bark.
What is the tree's favorite drink?
I don't know.
Root beer. Now that's 2 out of 3. This determines whether you speak or not. What did the tree do when the bank closed?
When the bank closed?
When the bank closed.
Oh, when the bank closed.
Yeah, it did.
It branched out.
It started a You think this is the guy?
Thank you, Rob. I do like tree jokes a lot. And especially when I'm speaking to second grade classrooms, they think I am hilarious. But my favorite one, my closer, is what is a tree's least favorite month?
September.
September! And you have to say it like that. Okay, my name is Dan Lamb, president of the Arbor Day Foundation. I'm honored to be here. Really, thank you for the invitation to be here. And I am especially glad to be here today. Mary Lyles, Chuck, Rolf. This morning, when I was driving to the airport in Lincoln, Nebraska, it was about 7 degrees. 7 degrees. And I got here, got my rental car, rolled every window down. Did not call my wife to brag about what the weather was like, but she saw it. So honestly, thanks for being here. I have been to Charlotte a number of times. It is a wonderful city. I have a lot of friends, even though folks say they don't know me, I actually do know some folks here. They don't like to claim it maybe, but I know that Charlotte has great leadership in urban and community forestry. We brought our National Urban and Community Forestry Conference here in 2014. We had about 500 people from around the nation come in to see Charlotte and learn about urban and community forestry, and they were wowed. It was a great event, a great host, so it's a pleasure to be back here, really. And I'm going to do 3 things. Number 1, I'm going to keep the celebration going. We've got some celebrations on recognition we want to do initially. Second, I'm going to give a little background on the Arbor Day Foundation, who we are, what we do. And then third, I'm going to offer a challenge. When I came in, I'm supposed to offer a challenge for you as you're here tonight, and as you go home, thinking about what kind of action are you going to take when you leave here, okay? But first of all, I want to thank TreesCharlotte for your leadership in pulling this kind of event together, the action you're driving across the community. It is so impressive. The volunteers, the staff. It isn't a huge organization, and it's a relatively new organization. But congratulations, because it is impressive what's happening. You've got great board leadership, great collaboration with the city. It's super impressive. So help me in congratulating TreesCharlotte and all the work. And I also want to celebrate the sponsor, Bartlett Tree Experts. We've known Bartlett at the Arbor Day Foundation for many years. I see how they are leaders in new science. They're leaders in collaboration. They're leaders in partnership and friendship. They do it because they really care about it. And also, Bartlett is a formal partner of ours in the Tree Campus USA program. I'm not sure if you're aware of the Tree Campus USA program, but Bartlett is our professional partner in the Tree Campus USA program. So they're helping to bring expertise and thought leadership to colleges and universities who are striving to meet core standards of tree care and tree management, community connectedness, and also student engagement. And we have the Tree Campus USA program has been around for 10 years, and we're excited to work with Bartlett. Bartlett actually next week here in Charlotte is bringing in about 30 different college leaders from around the country, from as far away as Alaska, to focus and work on tree care, tree management, and engagement in the Tree Campus USA program. So they're not just a sponsor to be a part of it, they actually are really engaged. Tonight, we have a very unique opportunity to celebrate the newest Tree Campus USA school in North Carolina, and that is Central Piedmont Community College, right here. If you don't mind coming up here, and I have not gotten to meet the representatives from Central Piedmont Community College, but if you're here, would you please join us up here so we can do a photo? Please, thank you. Okay, I'm going to give them that flag, but I want to use it one more time because I also want to represent and recognize University of North Carolina Charlotte as a 5-year Tree Campus USA school. So the folks from UNC Charlotte, please join us up here for photos. Okay, and then for, yes, again. For each of those schools, Marlette has provided a tree for you to take home and plant on your campus, okay? And don't forget that's your flag, okay? Okay, so we've got a lot of great partners. Our partners help us in these programs like Bartlett, but one of the great partners we have, not just in Tree Campus USA, but in a lot of the programs, is our friends in State Forestry, all across the country. North Carolina State Forestry is the same. They help us in so many different ways. Is anybody here from North Carolina State Forestry tonight? Well, they're not, but we are very thankful for their relationship over the years. We've created a number of programs with state forestry agencies, including back in 1976. Raise your hand if you remember or were alive in 1976. Okay, a lot of you folks weren't, but it was an important year. The #1 movie in 1976 was Rocky. #1 song in 1976 was Captain and Tennille, Love Will Keep Us Together. It's still a good song. We had to get up out of our couches and chairs to turn TV channels. It was a crazy time back in 1976. But in 1976, the Arbor Day Foundation, along with the United States Forest Service and the National Association of State Foresters, launched a brand new program called Tree City USA as a way to celebrate and encourage management of forestry in our communities, urban and community forestry. Nobody was paying attention to it, not enough. Very humble beginnings back in 1976, historic ambition. 46 cities were recognized that first year as a Tree City USA community. Today, more than 3,500 communities around the country are recognized and meet the Tree City USA standards. From New York City, which is the largest, about 8 million people, to Sibley, North Dakota, with 22 people as the smallest. 2 years ago, they had 26 people. I don't know what's going on in Sibley, North Dakota. But they take it very serious, and the city of Charlotte takes it serious. The city of Charlotte has been a Tree City USA for 39 years. And so I would love it if the mayor and other representatives from the city of Charlotte would join us for a picture with the Tree City USA flag. We can squeeze them. Thanks, Rob. Okay. It flew here from Nebraska. Are there any other tree cities or tree campuses in the room that I didn't get a chance to recognize? If you're a part of another tree city, please know we are appreciative, we are thankful. It's an exciting program and continuing to grow every single year. There's one other program I did want to mention, that's the Tree Line USA program, where we celebrate utilities that are doing their best to train their workers, have the right kind of working relationship with their communities. They're not just training their employees, but public communications as well. And there are 3 Tree Line USA utilities in North Carolina as well. But it is great to be here, okay? And again, congratulations to TreesCharlotte. Congratulations to all the winners tonight. It's exciting, it's always fun. We need to take time to celebrate. We're not always great at doing that, so it's important to do that. I want to give a little bit of background on the Arbor Day Foundation, so when you do leave here, you can say you know me or a little bit about the Arbor Day Foundation. Thanks, Rolf. The Arbor Day Foundation has a very simple mission, and that is that we inspire people to plant, nurture, and celebrate trees. And that's what we do. We do it lots of different ways, every single day, all across the country, all across the world. And each of these words is important. It isn't just about planting and walking away. As you all know, you've got to nurture those trees. And we have to celebrate. It's one of the reasons I jumped at the chance to come here today. But we were started in 1972 on the 100th anniversary of the very first Arbor Day. And I'm sure you all know that Arbor Day was started in Nebraska. That's why we are based in Nebraska. And I get the opportunity to give presentations like this all around the country, and people always look at me just like y'all are. Nebraska? Are there even trees in Nebraska? And it's a silly question, because there is. It's right here. And when I'm not there taking care of it, my assistant Carly keeps a very close eye. But seriously, it is a great job, because everybody loves trees. Right? Every now and then you run into somebody who maybe doesn't love trees, but people usually try and steer clear of them. People love trees, and like Brad was talking about, everyone's got a memory from a tree they planted with their grandparents or their grandchildren, or their favorite boulevard that they walked down on a hot day with their dog, or people just have this romantic notion of forests. Whether they ever go to a forest or not, people just love trees. So it's a great job. But most of the reason they love trees is the aesthetics, the beauty. And they are beautiful. Like that cherry tree in your yard, beautiful. But we all know, and we've heard it tonight, that trees do so much more than just provide beauty. And that's why several years ago, we introduced our very first vision ever at the Arbor Day Foundation, and that's that we're going to be a leader in helping increase the recognition and the use of trees as a solution to some of the most complex issues facing our nation and facing the globe. And you don't have to look very far to see how urgent this is. We've already talked about some of it. If you picked up a newspaper, or if you don't actually know how to pick up a newspaper and just pick up your smartphone and read the news, you saw that California was on fire this year. Worst fires in the history of the state, and it wasn't just California, and it wasn't just the United States. We are losing millions and millions of trees to forest fires. We heard earlier about Florence and Michael and the increasing frequency of hurricanes and typhoons and tornadoes. It's not just hot in Charlotte, it's hot everywhere. And those excessive temperatures are taking a real toll on lives. Not just human lives, but habitat. If ever there was a time to be planting trees, now is that time. It is the time for trees. It is our time. It's time, we're in the right place at the right time to be making a difference. And so that's what we're doing. And at the Arbor Day Foundation, we do it in a few different ways, and we don't do it alone. We need our partners, we need our friends, we need our members. We engage individuals in tree planting. Any members of the Arbor Day Foundation in the room? I know there's a few. Thank you very much. Sincerely, we appreciate it. We've got almost 1 million members around the country, and they are tree lovers. They are tree champions. They are tree advocates. But others turn to the Arbor Day Foundation just for information about trees. Our website gets about 10 million unique visitors a year by people just looking for information about trees. If you Google trees right now on your phone, don't do it. But if you Google trees on your phone right now, we're in a friendly competition every day with Wikipedia to see who comes up first. Because people just want to know more about trees. Like, what was that tree they just saw in their neighbor's yard? How do you plant a tree? Is it green side up or green side down? What's the right tree for my community? This kind of stuff they want to know. And so we're trying to make it easy for them to plant trees. We also plant a lot of trees. We plant millions and millions and millions of trees every year in our national forests and state forests, on private land and state parks. We're planting in the U.S., we're planting all over the world, thanks to our members, thanks to our corporate partners, restoring forests that have been devastated by fire, disease, insects, etc. And we do a lot of work in urban and community forests. Through programs like Tree City, Tree Campus, and many others, you know these are the hardest working trees out there. The hardest working trees. It's a tough place to be a tree. They are cleaning our air, as Rolf said. They are shading our homes. They are helping to slow that stormwater and flooding in our communities. They're doing so much, and it's important. We're working in communities, we're working in forests, and we're engaging people. And we're doing it all around the globe. The Arbor Day Foundation has programs and projects in 27 countries around the globe right now. So that's a little bit about the Arbor Day Foundation, but I am seriously excited to be here at the annual Big Tree Summit. And I'm glad to be here with you because I've just gotten to meet some of you, and this is who we are. This is the Arbor Day Foundation. We love getting to work with city leaders, volunteers, just tree planters and tree lovers. And thank you for being here. Thanks for coming to engage in this kind of dialogue and this kind of conversation. You are helping to make this a better city. You're helping to make it a better urban forest, a more resilient city, a healthier city. It's really important. And the fact that you're here, these events are important. It's an important chance to learn and connect and to share with one another. It's a chance to meet new people. It's a chance to learn and share those lessons that you've learned, get caught up to speed on what's going on in the city, and to celebrate. And we do have to celebrate, as we said. But while you're here, I'm going to give you a challenge, okay? While you're here, something to think about while you take home. And the challenge tonight is all about chemistry. Who loves chemistry? 3 of you, 4 of you. I don't like it either. You don't really like it. Brad probably does like chemistry. I remember my high school chemistry class, but I guarantee Sister Noreen, my teacher, does not remember me because I did everything I could to not make eye contact with her. But I remember parts of class. I remember the Bunsen burners. I remember some moderately dangerous experiments that kind of went awry. And I remember this. Who knows what this is? Right, periodic table of elements. And it's in the classroom, every chemistry classroom you go into, right? Everybody kind of knows what it is, and it's the key ingredients used in chemistry. It's the pieces and parts used in the science of chemistry. And at its simplest, chemistry is about bringing the right pieces together to create something. The right ingredients, the right elements. And then you tinker, and you test, and you try again until you get it right. And you're looking for the right ingredient, the right thing that's going to make it work. You're looking oftentimes for the catalyst. A catalyst, by definition, is a substance that increases the rate of chemical reaction. Brad could have told us that probably. But it's also someone or something that causes a change. A catalyst is a spark. A catalyst inspires action, creates movement, drives progress. So while you're here, we want you to think about how you can be a catalyst back in your community and the work you do, okay? So while you're thinking about that, we're going to go back to the chemistry lesson, okay? Okay, who knows the 2 key elements in water? Right, hydrogen and oxygen. Has there ever been a better partnership in history than hydrogen and oxygen, H2O creating water? Key ingredients, the pieces and parts. When present, water helps to provide nourishment for nature and for life. It's an agent of change, and it's a catalyst, and has a positive impact on our landscapes, our trees, and our people. The sun is another important catalyst, really maybe one of the most important, tied to all origins of life. But when you mix hydrogen and carbon and oxygen with that light, it helps to create photosynthesis, which drives the health and growth of our trees and our forests. Kind of important. Chemistry is about pulling those key ingredients together to create solutions, and it doesn't always have to be that scientific. There are other examples of this, things like this, where if you pull ingredients like flour and milk and sugar and eggs together, something beautiful can happen, right? Fresh baked cookies. And this is good. But when you add one more ingredient, if you can add a catalyst to this, you can take it from good to great. Does anyone know what that is? Chocolate. Chocolate can turn cookies into a healing experience. And it's a really important element. Not as well known, but my wife would say it's a more important element than carbon, water, everything, and it's not. But she thinks it is. But it's an important element, and it's all about chemistry. These are all examples of chemistry. It's getting the right mix of ingredients together to complement each other. And we see this every day, right, in our work. We see it in our offices. We see it in our coalition meetings. We see it in city council meetings. We see it at volunteer events. When you have the right chemistry, you can feel it, right? You can just feel it. And when you don't have the right chemistry, you can feel it. You just know. So when we're building programs, when we're building projects, when we're taking on new initiatives, it isn't easy. It's not supposed to be easy. You tinker, you test, and you try again until you get it right. We all have the opportunity to be catalysts. In our work, in our organizations, every single day, we can be that someone or that something that creates change, that spark, okay? Turning something good into something great. I don't expect you to read this. It's a whole laundry list of the type of constituencies in urban and community forestry. Every single one of them is a critical element. The people in this room, you all are ingredients, you're elements in the work around urban and community forestry. Like city foresters. City foresters are key leaders, city staff, key leaders working with city administration and coordination. And they're a key element in making strong, thriving urban forestry programs. Nonprofit tree planting organizations like TreesCharlotte don't just happen. They're really important community champions, communicators, volunteer coordinators, and they are a critical element in coordinated urban forestry programs, providing a voice for citizens. Tree boards, in a lot of communities, have a unique leadership role in city forestry. And they can be a highly effective element in driving priorities and attention around urban and community forestry. This room is full of ingredients and elements. Each of you has a role, each of you has a strength, and each of you has a value. And together, we are representative of an important mix that is urban and community forestry. And together, we are the periodic table of urban forestry. It's what we do. We are all important. When we mix these ingredients together, when we tinker and test and try again, we can find the right solution. So we're encouraging you to think about how you can be a catalyst when you go home and lead, like we've seen in Cleveland. I don't know if you've all been to Cleveland, but over the last several years, they have had a huge problem with an aging and deteriorating tree canopy. So the city sustainability office stood up, brought some of these key ingredients together, like city foresters, nonprofits, the mayor, other private consultants, and said, we're going to put a tree care plan together. They brought a committee together and forged a master plan, and now they have a pathway and a guide to how that city is going to grow and strengthen their sustainable urban forests. If you've been to Miami, you know they are on the front lines of climate change. Excessive temperatures, more and more frequently crazy storms, and literally water seeping up through the ground. It's not even coming in from the shore. They're getting flooding. It's just coming straight up from the ground. If any city needs trees, it's Miami. The county stood up as a catalyst. They were a spark, a ray of light, and they said, we're gonna do something about it. So they brought in resiliency directors, nonprofits, city council, city managers, corporate partners, lots of other elements, and created Million Trees Miami program. Set big goals, and they've been planting hundreds of thousands of trees over the past few years. They are an example of a catalyst, but you don't have to be a big city. Anybody can be a catalyst. Like Charlotte Fletcher here in Charlotte. Like Charlotte Fletcher. Transforming a school, engaging students, engaging parents, engaging teachers, and planting 100 trees and transforming their campus. That's being a catalyst. Like Dave Monaro, reaching out to his neighbors to say, hey, we can make a difference here. I'm gonna recruit not just money, I'm gonna recruit volunteers. And we're gonna plant trees, we're gonna plant a lot of trees, and we're gonna make a big difference in our community. Anybody can do this stuff, and it's important. These cities, these people, they're all examples of catalysts for new programs, new plantings, new partnerships. We need you to be that ray of light, that spark. We need you to be that chocolate here. And you're in the right place at the right time. You're doing the right thing. So while you're here with your peers and your allies and experts and your friends, think about what you can do when you go home. Offer that spark, create that change, and advance the chemistry of urban forestry in the Charlotte region. Thanks for the invitation to be here. I can't wait to come back and see all the progress you're making in years to come. So thanks for the invitation. I appreciate it.
That was a great presentation. Well, now we know a little bit about Dan. We get to grill him even more and ask him more questions. So Dan's going to volunteer to step here for a little bit and take some questions from you again. We'll kind of keep this short. And I do want to remind you, everybody who earlier, some of the Tree City organizations, campus, like if you want to come up later and take pictures with Dan with the flags and stuff, we'll do that afterwards. So you might want to stick around. So let me grab a mic here for Dan. All right, Dan. Since we don't have any questions, I'm going to ask you first. I'm curious, just watching your presentation, what do you think the biggest need is? Like, I know you guys do a lot of planting in national forest. I think when I think of Arbor Day, I think as a kid growing up, I remember like I really had this passion for trees as a kid, and you see the clear cutting, and I always thought of Arbor Day going in there, replenishing those trees in the forest. Do you think that replenishing the forest in big open spaces out west on public lands is more vital, or is the urban forest work that we're doing?
It's both. It really is both, and we have to be working in both landscapes. Those critical rural forest lands, 180 million Americans get their clean drinking water supplies. Those drinking water supplies originate on forest lands. And when those forest lands burn, when those forest lands are compromised by disease or insect, we have to restore those forest lands. Sometimes they will naturally regenerate. Oftentimes they won't, and either way, when we can accelerate that regeneration of those forests, we have to be there. But the work in urban space to impact human lives is every bit as important, and it's about canopy coverage, it's about strategic shade, it's about strategic planting for water management, the list goes on, and what I hear is the city of Charlotte being thoughtful and purposeful about how they're engaging different constituencies, with partners like TreesCharlotte, and it really is both.
Any questions? No. Way in the back, of course.
Thanks for coming from Nebraska.
My pleasure, seriously.
The United States, the most developed, advanced society the world has known. 40 years ago, there were cigarette smoking deniers. Cigarettes aren't bad for you, but we accepted the science. We fought that battle the rate of cigarette smoking has gone from 40% down to 19%. I mean, most everybody, even friends I have that smoke, they know it's bad for your heart and lungs, etc. Why do we have such a problem convincing our leaders, some of our leaders, that climate change doesn't exist? When NASA, the Armed Services, the Harbor Foundation, every legitimate scientific body says it does exist. What can we do to convince them to join half the other civilized countries in the world to address it head on?
There's a lot of great research out there talking about the impacts of climate change. We've heard tonight people expressing how they've felt it as they're managing natural resources in communities. Our experience is that while there might be some who aren't as anxious to jump on the bandwagon and start addressing it, fortunately a lot are. And tomorrow I'm meeting with about 10 different corporate leaders from Lowe's, Bank of America, NASCAR, Ingersoll Rand, a number of other companies who are in and around this area. And what's positive, I'll share with you, is while there might be some people dragging their feet, there are others who are leading. And it's cities who are leading. It is corporate interests, oftentimes, who are leading. A lot of times they're leading because their investors are saying, you need to do something about this, because if we don't plant more trees, we are at risk. So it's an investment, it's a realization that we have to do something about this. I can't speak to the administration or any other particular political figures other than to say, I think there's hope out there, because there are public leaders, a lot of them are at the city level, and there are private leaders who are doing the right thing. Trees aren't the only solution, but we sure like to talk about it a lot.
Yeah, I would say I deal with this on a daily basis. So one of the biggest issues that we're working on as far as communicating climate change is just how you talk about it. I think you bring up a very good point, Dan. I think the research that we look at, the group of people that do not believe it is very small. It's just they're very loud. Okay? So I'm positive too, because most people want information, and the best thing I can do is provide you with just the facts. I think people get caught up in the politics and the policy and don't always focus on the problem.
Brad, what kind of commentary or questions come to you or to the station?
Well, like today I posted the record highs for the next 3 days, just posting the data, and immediately people want to know why it was hot in 1927. Was there global warming in 1927? And I didn't even bring up climate change, but when that's the first thing out of their mouth, I kind of know where it's coming from. But I think the thing that I try to do is, focus on the science and try to steer clear of the politics. Because, I mean, honestly, I hate it as a scientist myself. I feel like, I feel like it's been hijacked. And it is what it is. That's why I like numbers and the science, because I can't cheat it. It just is what it is. Like, ice melts for everybody, regardless of what political party you're in. Okay? So it's not because you live in one state, 32 degrees, water still freezes. When it goes to 32.1, it melts. I mean, that's the laws of physics. So I'm great, because I got physics on my side. But what I try to do is communicate. And I think that's what I like about TreesCharlotte and this program is, this is an easy way to talk to somebody without even talking about climate change, right? It's hard to tell someone to change your lifestyle, like change your light bulb or change the car you drive. It's much easier to say, guess what? Why don't you plant a tree in your yard? It's a beautiful tree. It's gonna be great. You kind of sneak it in there. Like, hey, guess what this does on the side? It's kind of like a gateway to get people to there's other ways to work on it. And I think the great thing about what's going on here is, it's one thing. It'd be great if in Washington there was this overarching plan, but really, if we're going to solve this issue, it's going to be you, it's going to be me, it's going to be at the local level. It's not going to be, everybody's got to make choices. So it'd be a lot easier, but I think it's, the kind of questions I get are really good questions, actually. And I enjoy answering. People want information, and I just provide that information. So I'm optimistic.
Yes. How do we encourage our developers to stop completely denuding areas that are being built of all trees? Are there other communities, cities, states, which have enacted statutes, regulations, to stop this? Because for every big tree that gets taken down, yes, I'm happy to plant a TreesCharlotte tree. But gosh, it's going to take 40 years to make up for the loss of one tree that might have been nowhere near the construction site.
It's a challenge everywhere, helping to balance that development with tree management and preservation. Strong laws are needed, for sure, and then they have to be enforced. But also, we need to create information. And as with almost any argument, we need to put a value proposition out there. How do we present a value proposition about the value of keeping the trees versus removing the trees? There are some cities who have extremely rigorous ordinances and tree protection laws. Not every city is going to be willing to go that far. Not every city can, but it is definitely a mix of incentive and explain a value proposition, as well as just strong ordinance and protection. And I'd be happy to share some examples of some cities. I was out in California last week. They've got some extremely rigorous tree preservation laws. But it varies. It varies from city to city.
Yeah, Cary, just further north from here, they had enacted some regulations so that one of my friends who bought a home there had trees that were not in the way of construction. They managed to encourage the builders that value.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the ordinances are key, and Charlotte has a great tree ordinance, but also, I mean, us as consumers, you know, we need the demand when we buy property or new building that our contractors are looking out for the trees. I think it really comes down to us again, you know, the demand that, you know, the neighborhood I live in has mature trees, and that's one of the great things about my neighborhood. And it's amazing now, like you said, some neighborhoods where it was clear cut and built up, they're trying to get that look, and it's like, you could have had that to begin with if you would have planned correctly. So I think we need to demand it from our builders.
How can I be a catalyst? How can we all be catalysts?
That's the last question. So I want to thank Dan. That's a good one. There would leave it with a catalyst. I want to say, because it's a great uplifting presentation that Dan did. And I think that's the thing I always come from these summits is that, you know, there's a lot we can do. There's a lot of great things going on. It's only getting better. We can definitely encourage our builders, our cities, our neighbors. I think that's the one thing I would tell you guys leaving tonight is, you know, bring one of those seedlings home tonight. Knock on your neighbor's door and say, hey, you guys you need a tree? You know, and talk about it, because I think that's where it all starts, is going next door and talking to your neighbors and your friends to get them involved as well, and definitely our kids. So I want to thank everybody that came tonight. We've got the Queen's Crown, the citizen-driven effort to identify and embrace Charlotte's treasure trees. Both organizations want to thank them. They've been great. If you're out in the lobby, you can see their tables as well. And I want to thank Dan. Dan didn't tell you this, but a fellow meteorologist is a social media manager, Rusty. So it was like, he hit me up on Twitter. It's like, hey, my boss is coming to speak here in Charlotte tonight. So I kind of feel like I know Dan a little bit because I stalked his Twitter a little bit. So Dan, thanks Dan coming tonight. I know he's got a lot of work to go on here as well. And for anybody who won an award and you want to get a picture with Dan afterwards, we're going to do that afterwards as well. The mayor had to leave. I was going to thank the mayor again. And everybody else who came here tonight, especially Bartlett Tree Experts, thank you for sponsoring us again. And that's what we can do. Bartlett's a great example of a corporate partner who cares about trees and is doing some great work, and I really appreciate him coming. And thanks again for having me. I mean, I always love coming. I feel like we could talk these Q&A sessions all night, and if you ever want to talk to me about climate change for like 2 hours, that's like my new frontier of things that I'm working on in Charlotte, and I'm really passionate about that. And if there's one thing I'm going to do is make sure people in this city are educated on what's going on with that, because I think we in the media do a disservice to it completely. And so if I can do anything to make that change that, I'm going to do that. So thanks again for coming tonight. And remember, come up here and sit around and ask questions.
I was like, Lord, how does he even know how to do all that?
Well, 70-some degrees, I'm not gonna leave too early.
It's single Thursday.
Yeah, Rusty was saying.
I know.